It is 2 o'clock. Let's begin. Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. We have made it through another week. How you doing, Sophie? You all right?
I'm all good, thanks, Tim. How are you?
I am warm. It is warm in the UK this week, people. There's
Very
a lot
hot.
of a lot of t-shirts. I've spoken to a lot of Redgaters doing work from gardens with ice creams. I like it a lot.
That's a good plan.
I think it's fair to say everything is happening slightly slower than it might have been if the temperature was a bit more normal.
Very true.
Right, let's get on with this thing, shall we? So we are doing part 2 of the Guess the Flag game that we started last week. Now, last week we got through a whole load of the game. This week we've got a few more steps to go, and then obviously there'll be some challenges at the end for you all. So for those of you that missed last week, we've set up a starter project for you, which is here, and Sophie will share the link with you, or you can go back and watch the YouTube video and do it in your own time. As a reminder, this is what we're going to end up with. Right, so we've got our 6 flags, and quite simply, you need to click on the Bangladesh flag. If I click on the correct flag for Bangladesh, it tells me I'm correct. If I click on the wrong flag, it tells me I am wrong. Nice and straightforward. This is what we are aiming at. Now, last week we got quite a long way into this. We did a whole load of things. Firstly, we drew some new flags, didn't we? Then we put all of those flags into a list. We wrote some code to select a random group of these flags, and then we wrote some more code to pick one of these flags to be the correct answer. Once we've got through all of that, we then wrote some code to show these flags on the screen. So hopefully you're all in that same place that I am at, which is we've got our flags and we've got 6 of them displayed on the screen ready to go. What we're going to do now is actually turn this into a game. So we've got to ask the question to begin with. Then we're going to check to see whether they got the right answer. And then we're going to add some scores to the game as well to actually make this into something that people can play. Hopefully nice and straightforward. Let's see how we get on. Right. So where to begin? Where to begin is we need to tell the game what the right country is. So we're going to add some new code to here. We're going to be working with our when green flag clicked block to begin with. And we are going to broadcast a message. Right. So what we're looking for is broadcast message, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a new message, and it's going to be called announce country. Spelled correctly. And we're going to add that just in the bottom down here. So when the game runs, it's going to tell us what the correct country is. Now we're going to add a quizmaster to our game. So do you remember in the example here, we've got Abby down here who's asking questions. We're going to do the same, but you can pick anybody you like. So you need to add a new sprite to be your quizmaster. So down the bottom right, let's choose the new sprite. I'm going to pick Abby, but you can use anybody you like. She will appear on your stage. Let's move her into the right place. I'm going to make her a bit smaller as well. She's taking up too much of my screen. Something like that, maybe. Okay, so now we should all have a quizmaster into our game. Now what we need to do is we need to tell the quizmaster what the correct answer is. We do that with another one of our event blocks. So with our quizmaster selected, I'm going to say, when I receive announce country, we're going to get her to ask the question. And we're going to do that with a say block because we want her to say something. So when I go back to our example here, what she does is she says, say, click on Japan. And Japan is the country we're announcing, isn't it? So we are looking for top of looks, say. And this is where it's going to get a bit more interesting. So we're going to do something with this looks block that we haven't done before. We've used these a lot in the past just to say single sentences, but here we need to do something a bit more dynamic because we don't know what the country is yet. So we need her to say the name of this country. So there are going to be two parts to this. There's going to be some static text, which is the same every time. So back on my example, every single time I play this, she always says click on. So that bit is just static text. It's the country that's the dynamic part that's going to change. So we need to get her to say two things at once. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to use a join condition. So down in operators, we're going to pick out this join here. And we've got two things going into our join. The first is that flat text at the start, which is when she says click on. And then what we need her to do is to tell us the answer. So I could just type Italy in here. That's not going to help every time, it's a different country every time. So let's go to our variables and pick out the correct answer variable. Cool. So let's test this. When I receive announce country, say click on correct answer for 2 seconds. So when I click my green flag, you can see that Abby's saying click on England, click on Chile, and so on.
Could we just have a quick recap of that block, Tim, and just a bit behind?
So I've done a couple of bits now. So I'll go back over to my flag code first. The first thing I did was I added this message here, this broadcast. And I got that from events. I said broadcast, and I created a new event called announce country, and then drop that into there. Then we created ourselves a quizmaster, so I added myself a new sprite with Abby. And I moved her about a little bit, made her a bit smaller so she fits on the stage, doesn't interrupt my flags. And then I wrote some code for Abby. So I said, when she receives the announce country broadcast, again, that came from our events just here, I want her to say something. What I want her to do is use this looks block to say something. I want her to do two things. So I'm going to join a couple of things together from operators. I said join. And the first part of what Abby says, if we look at it here, is she says click on. I can do that just by typing into the first part of my join. So click on. And the thing we want to click on is the correct answer. So from variables, I picked out chosen flags. Oh, I didn't. I picked out correct answer from variables. Cool. So that is where we are so far. Let's test this works by clicking on the green flag. And it should say click on country. If you look carefully at this thing, you see that we've got a problem in here. Can you see that there's no gap between our two join conditions? This is just a little bit messy. And for those of you that I'm sure are all doing your literacy homeschool, you know there's a problem here. And what we need to do is add a space in. So that's super simple. Let's just go back to our join condition. And at the end of where it says click on, I'm just going to add a space to the end. Let's test it again. There we go. That looks a little bit tidier. So we're now at a place where Abby is telling the player to click on the correct flag. Now what we need to do is check whether the player clicks on the correct flag. I'm going to redo that say block just once more, because I think this is one of the more complex things we've done. So let's give it one more go. So first chunk, when I receive announce country is here. Then from looks, I picked out say, because I want her to say some things. And I want her to say two things, so I want to join two separate things together. So from operators, I pick out join, drop that into my say block. And the first thing I'd like Abby to say is click on, and then I want her to tell players to click on the correct flag. So from variables, I say correct answer. That's that little chunk there. Right, so how do we know if the player has clicked on the correct flag? We're going to write some new code, and we're going to do it in our flag sprite. So let's switch back over here. Scroll down a little bit so we've got some new space. And we want to write some code for what happens when one of these flags is clicked. So the way we're going to start that is with an event, which is when this sprite is clicked. So when one of these flags is clicked on, what do we want to happen? And what we need to do, what the quiz needs to do, is check whether the costume name of the flag sprite they clicked is the same as the correct answer. So you remember last week, we very carefully labeled all of our different costumes with the flag names. So we're going to write an if then else block here. So we want the game to do one thing if they pick the correct flag. We want to do something else if they pick the wrong flag. And what that does is click on Japan. If I pick the correct flag, it does this. It says correct. If I pick the wrong flag, it does this. Sorry, that was wrong. So that's our if then else. If correct, say yay. If not correct, say oh, not so good. So this is what we're going to do. Let's drop down into control. We've used the if block quite a lot before. Say if something happens, then do this. This time we're going to use the if then else block, which gives us two different conditions. So if it's true, do this. If it's false, do this instead. Right, so far what we've done in this section is jump back over to the flag sprite. We've said when this sprite is clicked from events, and then we've dropped in an if then something else block. So what is the condition we're looking for here? What are we trying to see has happened? What we're looking for is if the name of the flag they've clicked on is the same as the correct answer. So we need to write a condition to drop into our little hexagon here that will answer that. So we're looking for an operator, because if something is equal to something is the way to find this out. So operator equals and we know what it's going to equal is the correct answer. So we can drop that across from variable. So if something is equal to the correct answer, and that something we are looking for is the name of the flag. Now the name of the flag comes from our costume name, so these are all correctly named. So across in looks, I want to find costume name So if the costume name is equal to the correct answer, we can write some code. Just watching Matilda carry a table down the stairs. Some quality parenting happening here. Should be fine. You tell me if she falls, right? Right. So when the sprite is clicked, if the costume name is equal to the correct answer, then what we want to do is we want to congratulate the players because they've got it right. So we're going to use another say block. we are going to say correct. Hi, Tilda. Maybe. Tilda feels like the game is missing music. I obviously value her opinion, and we will be doing some music later, maybe. Right, so if the player picks the correct costume name, then we say correct. Otherwise, so if they pick the wrong costume name, we want to do something else. So we are going to say, think of something we want to say if they get it wrong. I'm going to be nice. I'm going to say, sorry, that wasn't right. I'm sure you all have some other creative things that you're including in these boxes. Cool. Right, let's give it a test. Let's see what happens. Save, otherwise I'll forget. Go, click on Botswana. Uh-oh, I don't actually know what the Botswana flag looks like. Let's try this one. That is not right, let's go again. Click on Turkey, we can do that. Correct. Let's go again. Red. Okay, that's looking good. I think that is working nicely. So now let's move on. Let's add a score to our game. Right. Let's scroll ourselves back up. I'm looking for the when green flag is clicked block. So I'm going to add something here. So we've done scores before and we've created variables to keep scores in. So the first thing we're going to do is something you know, which is we're going to add a new variable to our game. So down into our variables, and we're going to make a new one. And we are going to call it the score. So we have a new variable, a score, and it's up on the screen. I'm going to move it just down here, I think, so it's not in the way of my flags. We can do that just by clicking and dragging it around on the screen. Right, and the first thing we want to do with this variable is we want to make sure the game starts at 0. So the first thing we're going to do is set score to 0, and then let's just drop that in up the top here, so when the game starts, the score always goes back to 0. So this is all set up, ready to go now. So the game will start, we'll reset the score to 0. Next thing is we need to start to increase this score as people get the right answer. So if we wanted to increase the score by 1 when somebody picked the right answer, what do you think you'd do? Let's go back down to this block that we've already created. So this block down here is what happens when somebody gets something right. So at the moment, we say correct when they get it right. What we can do is amend this to also change the score. So let's change the score variable by 1. So now, if I get the correct answer, change score by 1 and say correct. Let's give it a test. Say Bangladesh. Correct. Score 1. Excellent. It looks like it's working. Next up, we need to make this game slightly longer because at the moment I get asked one question, that's it, it's just stopped. So how can we set up a new round to ask more than one question at a time? Right, we are going to do this by using another one of these broadcast messages to send information about the game between the different sprites. We think that would be a useful thing to do. So across to events, and we're going to create a new broadcast message. We're going to call it start the round. that's ready to go. Right, we're going to create another new block. I'm going to make some space at the top to create this. I'm just moving my green flag block over so I've got some space here. And we're going to write some behavior for when start the round is received. So from events, I'm going to say when I receive start the round. And what we're going to do is we're going to take all of the behavior that happens when we press the green flag to start the game and move it across to when a round is started, because we don't want it to happen just once when the game is started. We want it to happen over and over again, so we keep asking more questions. So quite simply, just take all of that code from the green flag block and drag it across to our new when I receive start the round. Now, there's one problem with this that I'm sure some of you will have noticed, and that is this very first block in here, which was really useful in the previous set of code we were writing, which is when I click the green flag, it sets my score to 0. But what's going to happen here is every time we start a new round of the quiz, it's going to reset the score back to 0, so it will never be possible to score more than 1. So actually, what we want to do is not put everything here. We want to put everything apart from that set score there. So when the game is started, we'll set the score to 0, but after that, for each following round of questions, the score will just keep getting added up. One final thing in this section, which is we need to actually start the first round. So we need to tell the game how to actually begin a round. And the way we do that is we broadcast the start the round message. Broadcast, start the round. Right, so when the green flag is clicked, set the score to 0 and then start the round. And what that'll do is it'll then fire this block of code here, which gets us started. So this gets us back to the same place we were at before. Let's just give it a test, which is I can ask the question, I can click on Denmark, and it tells me I'm correct. But it still doesn't then ask me a second question. So we need to write a little bit more code to start another round. And the way we're going to do that is going back down to this block here, which is dealing with what happens when the player answers a question. So when a flag is clicked, if they get it right, say correct and add the score by 1. If they get it wrong, say it wasn't right. And then what we want to do is we want to start another round. And this is why these broadcast messages are really useful, because we don't have to write loads and loads of new code to set up another round. All we need to do is say broadcast, start the round. So I'll get asked the question, I'll pick my answer, and then whether I'm right or wrong, it'll then say broadcast, start the round, and it'll go back up to the top here and play this block again to set us up another question. So let's give it a go and see what happens. Okay, Turkey. Correct. Okay, so good news and bad news. It asked us another question, but it's completely destroyed our layout. So there's definitely a problem here. And the reason why this has happened is because we've started a new round of the game without clearing up what was already there. So there's some extra flags hidden underneath here, which has confused things and it isn't laid out properly. So we need to clean up the screen before we set up one of these new rounds. So we're going to use another broadcast message. We're going to create another new one. And we're going to call this clean up. And now let's write some code for what we want to happen when we clean up. So when I receive clean up, what what we want to do is get rid of the clone flag that's on the screen. So from my controls, I'm going to say delete clone. So when I'm told to clean up, get rid of the clone flag. Nice and straightforward. And then we need to add a behavior to this chunk here. Clean it all up. Like so. Right, let's see what we've got. England. Bangladesh. Excellent, that is looking better. So that little addition there, I'll just recap again. We created a new broadcast message called cleanup. And what we want to do is after each round is clean up the flags that are on the screen so we can start with some new ones. So when I receive the cleanup broadcast, delete the cloned flags. And then just before I start the new round here, broadcast that cleanup message so it tidies up the screen. And that is what we need. One final tip is something that I've already done, but you may not have done, is down in our variables, we can choose to show and hide these things on the screen. And obviously showing the correct answer variable on the screen is not super useful. So you can hide that.
Could we just have a quick recap of starting the next round, please, Tim?
Yes, we can. Let's go back to this. Cool, right. Just pull mine apart to go back to where we were. So before we started to build the start the round section, this is what our green flag block looked like. So when I clicked on the green flag, all of these things happened to get the first question set up. Now that's great because that asks the first question, but what we want to do is then ask a following question. So that behavior that happens when we click the green flag, we want to happen again later on. So what I did was I created a new broadcast message. So down here, broadcast, new message, and I called it start the round. And I added a new block to my flag sprite, which is when I receive start the round. And what I did was I took all of the code from underneath the green flag and dropped it into when I receive start the round, apart from the part where it sets the score, because we only want to set the score to 0 at the very beginning of the game. So it looks like I just really quickly created a whole load of code there, but actually all I did was took everything from under the green flag and move it across to my new block here. So now, anytime the game hears the start the round broadcast, it'll run this block of code. And the first time we want that to happen is when the player starts the game. So I said broadcast, start the round. So I click the green flag, I set the score to 0, and then I run this code for the first time in the game. So that'll set us up with question 1. It'll load us 6 flags. It'll ask the question. The player can click the correct answer. The next thing we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure we ask another question. So there's a question 2. And what I did there was I moved down to what happens when somebody clicks one of the flags. And I added another broadcast message. Does there really? Do you want to come sit down? And what I added was another broadcast. So exactly the same thing as we did at the green flag, which is after they've picked an answer, I want to broadcast start the round again. So it asks another question. And then the last chunk of this recap is I created another broadcast called Cleanup to get rid of the flag that was already on the screen, just like that. And then I added the Cleanup broadcast. I can give it a go. Sorry, I need to find the end of the starting.
They're making some upgrades to my little place.
Amazing.
I'm going to go through creating me.
Matilda has been building a den in the other room. I can't quite show it to you because the camera doesn't stretch that far, but she is now making upgrades. There you go. Okay, so let's just recap the cleanup code, which was the last thing I did, which was I created one final broadcast called Cleanup. And when the flag sprite receives cleanup, I used a control, which is delete the clone, so that gets rid of the flags. Then I added broadcast cleanup down here. Right, so hopefully we're all in the same place. Give your game a test. Let's see if this works. You should be able to play multiple rounds. Your score should go up. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, that is looking good to me. So that is as far as we wanted to get the game today. You're now in a place where you're asking questions, you're adding a score. It's a really simple game here. It's now up to you to see how you can improve this. What else could you do to make this game a little bit more interesting? I've got some ideas, things you could try. You could start saving high scores maybe, so you could get lots of different people to play it and see who gets the highest score, so people will increase the score. Maybe you could add a timer so people have to answer really quickly, so they haven't got time to go to Google and look up a flag before answering. Maybe you could give them a negative score if they get the wrong answer. Maybe you could have more flags. Maybe, if you think about it, you could turn this into a two-player game where two different people take it in turns. So you can ask their names and then have different goes and have two sets of scores going. Of all the things we've showed you today, you can just start to extend on those and build out these extra layers for your games. So hopefully there's a few ideas you've got already of how you can make this a little bit more challenging. As always, we'd love to see the kind of things you're creating, because everybody is doing slightly different things. It's really fun to see the different variations on this. And we will share all of the code and everything afterwards so you can see it too. That, everybody, is everything we wanted to do today. We are shorter than usual, but that's good because I am warm. We will be back again next week with something more exciting. I'm not sure what we're going to do yet, but I will let you know. Links to the guide are in the chat, so if you missed sections, that will take you through exactly the instructions that I've been reading through, so you should be able to find a bit of code you're missing. We'll also share the project that I've just built, so you can see exactly how mine is set up as well. Otherwise, thanks very much, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that. Have lovely weekends, and we will see you again next week.